Are you ready to get vulnerable and up close and personal with me? If you're going to listen to any episode today, then this should be the one. I'm going to share some things that I haven't really shared before. My personal experience with overcoming my eating disorders, building my business, and the mindsets that were needed in order to truly change my life. So if you know you want to make a change, if you feel like you know what you should do, but you keep getting in your own way and you don't know why, and there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of resistance when it comes to actually doing the things that you know that you need to do in order to heal, in order to transform your relationship with food or your body or achieve any kind of dream right now, this episode is going to talk about the mindset that might be keeping you stuck and how to change your perspective, how to change the way that you think in order to actually go after those goals. So let's get into this episode. All right, so you are now witnessing a live podcast recording, and the way that this idea came into life is because I was creating content for Instagram, and I was talking about how, as your coach, I don't really care about the food that you eat. I care about the way that you feel when you eat it. And so I started writing a caption about it, and then my mind just started going in just a bunch of different directions. And I was like, okay, let me just summarize it and come onto the podcast to explain my philosophy when it comes to coaching, because I think that that's something that I've never really gone deep into. And I think that I've done you a disservice because I haven't really taken you into my life of what it was like to overcome disordered eating. I think that I have been working with clients for so long now that I've almost taken on their stories and have forgone my own. And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but in the sense that I feel like my struggles with food are close but distant. And because this new life where I don't struggle with my relationship with food one bit, really, it feels like a different life. And so when I look back to the person I was when I was, I would say maybe 19, 20 is when it really got to its worst. It feels like a different person because I put myself in her shoes and the kind of thoughts I used to have on a daily basis. And I almost cannot believe that I used to say these things to myself, how mean I used to be to myself. And I think it's important to remember what that was like, because that's where I meet you, because I know where you are. I know what you're struggling with. And it's really important to me that you not only feel supported by a professional who has the knowledge and the research and the data, which I all have. You know, I have the knowledge, I have the tactics and the tools that you'll need. And that's one piece of it. It's really important to have a coach who knows what they're doing. And that is why I spend all of my time researching and listening to the latest podcast or reading the latest books. You know, I'm always researching and learning more. And I love that about my job. I love that I get to do that for a living and then translate everything that I'm learning and applying to my life to my clients. I think that's awesome. And so, yes, the knowledge piece is so important from your coach. But the second piece that I think that a lot of coaches just don't have, and that's okay, is the personal experience of going through it. Personally, if I am hiring someone to help me with my chronic pain, because I have chronic pain because of my scoliosis. So if I'm hiring someone to help me through my chronic pain, and I have two people, I have the one person who might have all the credentials and, you know, they might tell me exactly what to do, but they don't really understand what it's like to live in chronic pain. It's not the same connection. And for me, because I know that now, my new thing that I'm working through is my chronic pain. I know it's an emotional topic for me. I know that it's not just about the tools and the steps and the trainings. I know that's part of it. But I also need that human connection of knowing someone understands me, knowing someone has been through what I'm going through and is also on the other side. Because when it comes to chronic pain, and what I've been learning is that you have to rewire. It's very parallel to your relationship with food. You have to rewire your relationship with pain. What I have is called neuroplastic pain, which means that because I've had many injuries on my back, I've almost created, my brain has created pain in my back when it's not actually there. Because I have had these injuries on my back, and basically every time that I've injured my back, it's creating a hypersensitivity to any motion, any movement, any sensation on my back, and analyzes it as painful, as dangerous. Even a sensation that would feel perfectly normal to someone else feels painful and dangerous to me. And so this has been a survival mechanism that my brain has developed. And so I can't be mad at my brain for it. But I also know that it is now my responsibility, and I actually am going through the process. I can't remember quite what the therapy is called. I'll look it up. Okay, I looked it up, and it's called pain reprocessing therapy. I knew I had it on the tip of my tongue, but basically I'm having to learn how to rewire the way that I view and think about sensations in my back. And I have to tell you, it has not been easy. It takes the mental load of rewiring your brain. And so it is something that I have to work on. There's some journaling involved, right? There's some literally rewiring neural pathways in your brain involved in this process. So it's not just an issue that could not be addressed through the mental and emotional side. And as I've been working through all of this, I'm really noticing how much of it can be linked to how we view our relationship with food. And when you're looking to get a coach, it's not just a, how would I say, emotionless issue. It's not just teach me how to play guitar. It's not give me a meal plan and tell me how to follow it. It's a lot of emotional work that needs to be done. Because if you're listening to this right now and your relationship with food is struggling, then you and I both know it's a very emotional issue in your life. And I know that because I've been there. I know that it cannot be solved by reading a book because there are emotions involved. So my approach and my methodology as your coach, and this is not just some methodology that I woke up with overnight. It happened through analyzing my own experience. It happened through working with clients, because my own experience going through my struggles with food in my teens and 20s is not going to be exactly the same as someone who maybe is in their 30s and has a family, or in their 40s going through menopause, or in their 50s after menopause. So because I'm fully aware of that, and when I started coaching, I have worked with hundreds of clients at this point who have been through every stage of life. And it's through working and through experience and through really caring about people and understanding the way they work. That's something that I've just naturally always been drawn to, is wanting to understand people. And not just on the surface level, but understanding people, why they do something, right? Like, what's the mindset behind it? What are they thinking that's causing them to behave a certain way? I just find that so fascinating. And I don't just do that with my clients. I do that with everyone that I meet. And it's actually something I've become a lot more aware of in the past, I think, year or two, where I'll be having a conversation with someone who I just met at a party. And literally within 5 minutes, without realizing, I'm into asking them personal questions about their lives and getting deep. Like, I remember a couple of years ago, I went on a date with someone, and within like the first hour of us meeting, we were talking about his parents' divorce, and he snapped out of it at one point. He was like, "How did we get on this topic?" And I was like, "Oh yes, I forgot to tell you, if you don't stop me, I will keep asking questions, because that really is my passion in life, is understanding people." And because of this genuine passion, as I started working with so many clients, it became easy to understand behavior. And it became easy, well, I won't say easy, but for me, it became clear how patterns are formed. And these patterns of thought, it doesn't matter if you're in your 20s or your teens or your 30s or your 40s or your 50s, they all kind of follow the same line. Like, your behaviors and your struggles with food, especially if we're talking in the realm of your relationship with food and the relationship with your body, and not knowing what to eat and not knowing how to listen to your body, I would say that what I have noticed is that it does exponentially get difficult as you get older and as you diet. And the age doesn't so much have to do with the time you've been on this earth, but it has more to do with how many diets you've done. So that's definitely what I have noticed after working with all age groups. One of my clients was in her late 60s, and she had been dieting for like 50 plus years. And that's really what I've noticed in all of these age groups, is that although we think that we can blame the time of our life that we're going through, like, the struggles with food really have the same backbone to it, whatever decade of your life you're in. And that's why I really love working with my clients who might be in their 40s and 50s, because I can see what kind of life is possible for them on the other side, because I know that their mindset is exactly the same mindset that I had when I was in my teens or 20s. And so I know that if I can overcome it, and I have shown, and I think that's really what comes with experience and with time in your business. Now that I've worked with so many women, and I've seen that this process is repeatable. I'm seeing people literally change their lives, and seeing that this works is so, it's not only validating that this is a process that you can do and you can teach and you can reteach time and time again, but it also shows me that it doesn't matter how long you've been struggling. It doesn't matter how many diets you've done. It doesn't matter how old you are. I've literally heard every story on the planet, and I've heard every reason why someone thinks that they're going to be the one who it doesn't work for. And every time that someone tells me that, I just chuckle, because I want to say, like, you think you're the first person who felt this way? We all have these fears, no matter what we're going after. When I started my podcast, there was obviously the fears that, what if this is not successful? What if it doesn't work? Like, anyone you look up to who's ever done something big has had the fear doing it, has had the fear that they would fail or that it wouldn't work, because no one knows when they're starting something new. No one knows if it's going to work or not, because you've never done it. And so, of course, there's that fear, but there's also that leap of faith. And that leap of faith is a belief in yourself that you can do this. And I know that you have that fear that's coming in right now that's saying, but I've felt this way so many times before. You have no idea, Sabrina. I felt like this every time that I did a diet. I felt like this time was going to be different. And what I say to that is that it doesn't matter how many diets you've tried and failed, because that's not what we're doing here. Like, those are literally two different categories. It's like comparing apples to oranges. It's like if I was skeptical about going into pain reprocessing therapy and I brought in all of my baggage from when I was dieting, and I was like, I probably can't get rid of my pain, or I can't manage my pain, and I can't rewire my pain around my brain because of these diets. Those two things are two completely different things. And so when we're talking about, I'm not sure if I can rewire my relationship with food, you've never tried. You really have never tried, because you've done the Weight Watchers, right? Like, you've done the Noom, you've done the calorie counting. How much of that talked about, addressed your self-esteem, how you think about yourself, the thoughts that you have on a daily basis, right? Do you constantly focus on the negative in your life? None of them probably looked at, how do you form habits? What is your mindset around habit? When you start something new, do you go all in, like from 0 to 100, and then within a couple of days you burn out and all of your good habits fall out the window? Is that a pattern that you have? And if so, if it's a pattern, let's understand where this pattern is coming from. So when you look at all those different things that you've done, the Nooms, the ketos of the world, look at what they all had in common. And what you'll see is that none of them addressed your relationship with food. And so when you go into any decision, right, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while now and you've been considering going on an intuitive eating journey, you've been considering really making that decision to ditch diet culture, to stop dieting, and to put in the work to heal your relationship with food, which you and I know that it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be as straightforward as follow a diet. But if you've been thinking about doing this, and that fear of, what if I've done so many things so many times before and I just don't want to fail again? Hear me when I say this. You are doing something completely different. And that means that you're in a whole other playing game. Now you're doing work to set yourself up for 20, 30, 40 years from now. We're not just thinking in the 3 months, 3 weeks period. We're thinking about long term. And I know that it's scary because you've never thought about it that way. You've always been about instant gratification. And so I understand that rewiring all of that and having a different mindset is not easy. I know that. I am someone who fiercely believes in coaching, in therapy, in getting support, in reaching out, in learning when you don't know how to do something. When I first started my business, I had never really made massive amounts of investments into myself. And I remember I was like a couple of months into starting my business and trying to figure it out on my own. And I was bouncing from one place to another, listening to so many podcasts and downloading all of the free challenges and the free PDFs. And I was overwhelmed. I was frustrated. And I was tired of always jumping from one thing to another, because the business world has taught me a lot in how my relationship with food was very similar to it. And it's very interesting because as I'm doing this work and I compare my relationship with food to my relationship with work to my relationship with pain, I can see that we have patterns in all of these areas of your life. And this is something I always say to my clients: the way you do one thing is the way that you do everything. And so as I've been working to really understand on my brain, I'm recognizing how these patterns get formed. And I'm so sorry, I just realized I went on a huge tangent, but really stay with me because this is going to circle back and it's going to make sense. But I think that all of these pieces are really important to understand. So when I was starting my business and I was, like I said, jumping from one place to another, there was one day, I still remember, it was like August 18th or something. And some ad popped up on my Facebook and I clicked on it and it was this free webinar. So it's like this free webinar on how to like grow your coaching business or something. So I watched the webinar and I was when I watched it, I was like, okay, I always see all of these like free webinars online and I've watched them all before. So I doubt this is going to be any different. But whatever, I give it a shot. I watched the training and the training is really good and I'm learning a lot. And I was like, oh God, okay, this is super cool. And then at the end of the training, her like call to action was to book a call with her, book a free discovery call. And at that point, I was like so tired of just jumping from one place to another. And I really wasn't making any forward progress, but I was believing that I was. And I was just keeping myself busy on doing all of these things on my to-do list. And like, really, I wasn't moving my business forward. I wasn't getting clients. And I thought like I, at that point, had not really invested much into my own education because I thought I can figure this out by myself. There's so much information out there that I'm sure that I can figure this out by myself. I'm a smart girl and I'm hardworking and all of these things are true. And as I started trying to figure it out by myself, I just realized that I couldn't. So that call to action comes and I was like, you know what? There's no harm in booking a free call. So I booked the call and I really went into it. I remember I went into it talking to myself and I was like, Sabrina, she's going to try to make a sale to you at the end of the call and you're not ready to invest in your business yet and you don't have the money because I also did not have the money to invest in myself. So I was like mentally preparing myself for the sale and like being strong and saying no, which is like a crazy mindset that I was there back then. But anywho, I get on this call and he starts asking me some questions about my business. And as he's asking me some questions about my business, I realized like, oh, I really don't have things figured out. And I don't know where to go next. And I know that if I keep doing this, I'm just going to keep spinning around in circles. And I had never really stopped to think about it until that moment. And so at the end of the call, he was like, he said something of like, do you think that you'll be able to solve this by yourself? Like on a scale from 1 to 10, do you think you're going to be able to solve this by yourself? Like being fully honest. And he asked me that question and I was like, if I'm being fully honest with myself, which is a really important part of changing your life, it's being honest with yourself. So I was really honest with myself and I was like, I truly do not think that I can. Sorry, I said that super weird. I choked on water. But I truly don't believe that I can. And even if I did, I know it would take me a lot of time. And when I'm saying a lot of time, I mean like years and years. And I was not ready to spend another 2 or 3 or 4 years feeling this way, trying to learn things on my own and not really making any changes in my life, in my business. Like I was not ready to do that. So he tells me, he was like, look, if you're not able to do this on your own, we do have a program that helps people do these things. And I was like, of course they do. Like, I assumed that this was the case. And I was like, all right, you know what? And every time they were talking about like what they help people with, I was like, man, that sounds exactly like me. Like, that's literally what I need. So he tells me about the program and I was like, this is spot on. Like, this is exactly what I need. And then he tells me the investment, which was, I still remember, it was $10,000. And he said it and like my heart dropped. I was like, I don't have $10,000. I don't even have a couple of $1,000s. And I just got super disappointed because I was like, I'm not investing in my business right now. And like what I ended up doing is I ended up getting a second job to pay off my, so I just, a spoiler, I did enroll in the program. But when he told me the price, like I said, my heart dropped and I was super disappointed because I was like, I can't do it. So then he's like, look, think about it. And I know that he really saw and heard the fear in my voice because he knew the potential that I had. He knew how much I had a belief that I could help people. But he also saw that I was holding myself back because I was afraid that I was going to fail. And I didn't even realize that I had that belief until it like really came clear to me during the call. And anyways, I get off the call and I sit down and I'm like, okay, should I do this? And if so, how can I do this? And so when I started thinking about, should I do this? All of these funny, crazy excuses and stories started popping up in my mind. I still remember my birthday's August 26th. And I still remember thinking, oh my God, I can't enroll in the program. It's my birthday soon. And I want to celebrate my birthday, as if enrolling in a 3-month program was going to be affected by like 1 week of my birthday. But that's one of the fun excuses that my brain came up with, because when our brain is scared, it makes these fun excuses to keep us safe. And then the thoughts of, what if I do this and I don't build my business and I don't get any clients and I don't make my money back? That thought came up for me. There was, what if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not made out to have a business? What if I'm not, and then fill in the blank. And after really sitting down with those fears, I became crystal clear. I took the fear out of it and I looked at it logically. Look, Sabrina, right now, if you keep doing this, if you keep trying to figure this out on your own, you're going to waste years and years of your life where you could have been helping people. You could have been changing people's lives, and you could have been changing your own life. I mean, I look back on that decision now and I think, oh my goodness, if I had not made that decision years ago, my life would be completely different now. And so, yes, I give my past self a massive, massive hug for doing it. But in that moment, I'm telling you that all of the fears that you might be having were there for me too. And anyone who makes that first investment, like that first real investment in themselves, the one that they know is going to possibly change their lives for the better, they have that fear. And so I ended up thinking about it and I was like, you know what? If I believe that I can help people, and I believe that I have the capacity to start a business that is going to reach hundreds of people, then if I don't invest in myself, then I'm really just saying that I don't believe that I'm capable of doing that. Because if I was capable of doing that, then I would make that $10,000 back within a week, right? And so I realized that what I wanted to believe about myself, which was that I was capable of starting a business, which was that I could help people. And for you, all of those thoughts that you may want to believe about yourself, that you are capable of having a normal relationship with food, that you are capable of putting a stop to binge eating and overeating, and you are capable of being like that one person in your life that you admire, that just seems to have a normal relationship with food and healthy habits. If you truly want to believe that you can be those things, that you can change, but then your actions don't reflect those beliefs that you want to have, then those beliefs are dreams. They're not beliefs, and they're lies that you're telling yourself. And so I want you to sit down with yourself right now, and I want you to get super clear on, do I truly believe that I can heal my relationship with food? And if you really get down to what's holding you back, maybe it's because I don't know how, right? If that's the only thing that's holding you back, like if I had all of the steps, if someone literally walked me through it and held my hand every step of the way, I know I can follow instructions. I know that if someone gives me something to do, I can do it. So I know that if I follow this step by step, I can heal my relationship with food, right? If you know that, if that's a belief that you hold, but your actions don't reflect that, so when you are presented with an opportunity for someone to walk you through that process, you're not willing to invest in yourself and you're not willing to take those actions to actually do it, then your beliefs and your actions, they create a lot of tension within you, right? And when your actions don't align with your values, so if your values are body neutrality and enjoyment and peace and calm around food, if your values are family and relationships and prioritizing time with loved ones, if your values are being able to be 80 and 90 and not worrying about the amount of calories on your ice cream cone, if you want to be around for a long time and you want to be on your deathbed, not worrying about the size of your jeans, but surrounded by people that you love, if you want to be 80 or 90 years old and look back on your life and be so proud of how present you were and what good of a role model you were for the people around you, if you want to look back at a life where you really loved yourself, like you didn't spend it hating yourself and being your worst critic and being your own bully, like you really look back on your life and you want to see how well you treated yourself, not just physically through the foods that you were eating or the exercise you were doing, but mentally, like treating yourself with kindness and compassion and being gentle and caring about yourself. If those are your values, but your actions don't align with your values, then it feels really terrible for human beings because then we live out of integrity. And then we start believing that our values and our word really doesn't mean much because I keep saying things that I'm going to do and then I don't follow through on them. And then you start creating an identity about yourself that you don't follow through on things. And do you see how this becomes a pattern? Again, human behavior is a pattern. And so going back to when I sat down to make that decision and I was asking myself, okay, I believe that I can do all these things. Now it's time for my actions to align with it. And so I called back, and that was after deciding, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I have enough savings to like pay part of it now. And then I'm going to work in a restaurant and I'm going to pay the rest off. And I was like, I'll figure it out. Because that's what commitment really is. Commitment is about making a decision and sticking to it. Making a decision, even if you don't feel ready. Even if your brain is making all of these excuses and creating all of these stories as to why it won't work. Because when you make a decision and you decide, I'm going to make this decision and I'm going to make it the best decision I've ever made, which is the decision that I made. I said, you know what, if I'm investing in myself, then I'm going to show myself that I can do it. And I'm going to show up and I'm going to go to all the calls and I'm going to ask all of the questions and I'm going to ask for advice and I'm not going to hesitate because I'm making this decision. So I'm not letting it be a bad decision. I'm going to, if you're telling me that this is a program that if you show up and you do the work, you're going to get success out of it, then I'm going to do the work. And that's exactly what I say to everyone who joins my program is if you're someone who's going to show up to the calls and who actually wants to ask questions, like you really truly want to get better, you want to learn, you know that there is so much to learn, and you know that I have these tools, and you know that no matter what you're struggling with, I can support you, if that is you, then why wouldn't you get success on the other side? When you have like a literal proven methodology, when I have seen time and time again from people, all walks of life, right? All diet histories, all kind of mindsets or families or work lives. And every single one who has gone through the steps and who has shown up for themselves can look back at the end of the 3 months and say, this was the best investment I have ever made. So if you believe that you're going to show up for yourself and all you really need is guidance, all you really need is someone to hold your hand, but your actions don't align with those beliefs, right? So let's say you're presented with an opportunity to literally have those things that you just said that you needed, which was someone to hold your hand and walk you through it and to give you every tool and to help you understand why you're going through what you're going through. And also having someone who has been through it herself, and you have this opportunity and you don't take it, then we're living out of integrity because our values, our words are not aligning with our actions. And confidence comes from following through on your word, from saying you're going to do something and then seeing yourself actually doing it. So for me, my confidence came from saying, you know what? I said that I want to start a business. Now I'm going to show it through my actions by investing in myself to make it happen. And so I did invest in the program, spoiler, and plot twist. And of course, I can now look back on it and say that was the best investment I made. And looking back on it, that specific program, what it did is it started me off on this journey of never-ending growth. And ever since I saw how much having a place where you're not just picking apart the podcast and the books, you literally have the step-by-step of someone who's like been through it. So for me in the case, it was like she had started as a coach and she built her business from nothing. And then she started coaching other coaches on how to do it. And so I was like, okay, well, if she's built a business and she knows what it's like and went into like $1 million figures. And so I was like, okay, she's worked with all these clients. And so let me just follow the formula. And so I followed the formula and I got clients within a few weeks after months of trying to do it by myself. And I quickly paid back my investment. And I knew when I invested in it, like when I had put my money in it, because when you pay attention. So when I put my money in it, I knew now I'm invested, not just financially, but I'm invested emotionally. Like I'm going to show up for myself because when I put down that investment in myself, it was not just like an investment for a program, but it was I'm investing for my future. Because I look back on it now and I see that $10,000 as so insignificant for the launching pad that it provided me. Because I invested in that program and then my business grew. So I invested in a new coach and then my business grew. And as my business grew, I kept making investments in myself. And it almost became this addiction because I saw that if I'm struggling with something, all right, I've got two options. I can struggle for another 5 to 6 years and have my business slow down and not go as fast as I want and not grow as much as I want. Or I can save myself that time, invest in it now, and get all of those 5 or 6 or 7 years back. And so when you're looking at the kind of investments you want to make into your life, I want you to think of how many years you would get back if you really did invest it in yourself. So let's say you started dieting when you were, to round up the numbers, we'll say 20. So you started dieting when you were 20 and maybe you struggled into your 30s, maybe into 35, 36. And now you're at a point that had you invested, let's say when you were 21, you would have saved 15 years. All right. So let's look at where you're at now and what another 15 years would cost mentally on you. Like, how much do we value 1 year to have back in our lives with a healthy relationship with food? So if I were to, let's say, look at my life now, and I look at how long a year really does feel like when you're in it, and to think about having even just like 6 months of having a poor relationship with food again, you could not pay me enough money to do that. Like to start calorie counting, or to start cutting out carbs, or to start over exercising again, or to start under eating. Like you could not pay me enough money. Like it is not worth anything in the world to me, truly. And I say that, like, even if someone offered me millions of dollars to just spend even another 6 months feeling this way, I would not do it. And so for you, if you can look at, all right, what is the value of a year to me? Maybe it's $1,000, $2,000. Like what is a year in the sense of how you feel about yourself and how you feel on a day-to-day basis, not just emotionally, but physically and socially, because that's how your relationship with food affects every area of your life. It's on all of those buckets of your relationships. And then let's say that for you, it was like, oh, God, my years are worth, to have a year back would be priceless. I would spend like $10,000 to have that. All right, now let's say we were to go extending, because if you were to look at how long you have been trying to figure it out on your own, maybe it's 2 years and you still are struggling. And so now we're 2 years that you're losing. So another 2 years forward of struggling with this. So now we're at $20,000. And then every year, if you value your years as much as you should, because it really is the only thing that we don't get back. It's the only commodity that is non-redeemable. Once the year is gone, the year is gone. Like there's no going back in time. And so I really wish that everyone valued time as much as it should be. And in that moment, when I made that decision to invest in myself, I decided it was ready for me to value my time, because I know that a year doesn't just mean a year. There's a lot that can happen in a year. And if you imagine all of the things that can happen to you when you change the way that you feel about yourself, you get to understand your brain, you get to understand why you struggle with certain things like all or nothing mentality or food guilt or binge eating or overeating and emotional eating. Emotional eating, that's a massive one. Like imagine when you understand how your emotions work, why you struggle with emotional eating, and how to resolve it without just following the classic advice of chewing gum and going for a walk. No, like you actually want to get to the root cause of it. Like truly imagine how having all of that better, not necessarily completely fixed, right? Because it's going to be a process. I'm not going to lie to you. You're not going to, within 2 or 3 weeks, completely resolve your diet mentality, right? This has been something that has formed over time, not overnight. So it's not going to get fixed overnight. It is going to take some time. It is going to be a process. And you and I both know that, because you know that I don't do quick fixes. I'm not going to pretend I do quick fixes, because that's the exact thing that I talk against. And you, after your experience going through all the quick fixes that you've tried, you probably know deep down why it doesn't work. There's a reason why we call them Band-Aid solutions. It's because it treats the symptoms, it doesn't treat the cause. So you have done the quick fixes. And I'm assuming because you've done them and because you listen to my podcast and maybe some of my trainings, you know that I don't do quick fixes. I'm not going to lie to you. But I will also tell you that within a month to a month and a half, you are going to start seeing massive changes within how you feel. And I will say even less than a month and a half. I have two weeks in some clients who are coming in and saying, I'm already seeing the world differently. Like I'm already seeing how detrimental diet culture is. I'm hearing conversations everywhere that I truly can't believe that I used to agree with these things, or I used to talk like that. I'm seeing all of these disordered comments that are being made about people's weights and about people's bodies. It's like when you really see it, you cannot unsee it. And so, yes, you will start to feel better within a couple of weeks. You will start to see changes. You will start to have a new mentality around food. Your habits are going to be different as you're going to start bringing these foods in, and you're going to learn to trust yourself around them. It's going to feel very empowering. I will tell you that all of these things will happen. And then you're going to start noticing that it's not just affecting like your relationship with food, but you're starting to see how it affects every area of your life, because you're noticing that the way that you think about food and about yourself is very negative. And then you're going to start seeing how you tend to have maybe a negative mindset in other areas of your life. And because you're working on changing your relationship with food, you're also changing your relationship with yourself, because those two are intertwined. And you're also working on your body image, because you cannot heal your relationship with food without working on body image. And so as you're doing all of these things, what we're doing is we're working at the motherboard, which is your brain, the thing that controls all of these things, because your brain creates thoughts. Well, you create thoughts and your brain reinforces these thoughts. We're not going to get into all of that, but your thoughts are at the base of everything. The way that you behave around food are most often going to be traced back to the way that you think about food and about your body. So when you learn how to change that, you're going to see how you can actually change your negative thoughts in other areas of your life. And you might learn to communicate better, and you're going to learn how to feel your emotions better and not run away from them. That's emotional resiliency, which you're going to learn. So as you're learning all of these skills, when I'm saying your year is not just a year, I mean that think of how much can change in just a year. Like, we overestimate how much we can do in a week, but we drastically underestimate how much we can do in a year. Like, really, if you started learning about your brain, something that if you had done years ago would have completely transformed you. And I say that because I look at who I was prior to doing this work, this mindset work, and after, right? Like my life before and after. Like I said, two completely different people. And I know that if I had not done the work on myself and I had not invested in myself, I probably would not have been able to change in the way that I did, or definitely not as fast. And I am also so thankful that I did it in my 20s, because now, oh my God, like I said, launching pad into what you can accomplish. Because when you have a strong mindset, then everything that you do, any challenge that comes up, you know how to handle it. And so your mindset and your relationship with food are very connected. They're intertwined, along with your self-esteem and how you feel about yourself. Because if you don't genuinely accept and like yourself, if your self-esteem is in the gutters, then you're not genuinely going to want to take care of yourself, because why would you? Think of someone in your life that you really dislike, like you really cannot stand to be around them, but sometimes you have to be around them, or you have to help them, or you have to take care of them. Maybe it's like a sibling or a parent. When you're taking care of them, you're not doing it from a place of love and happiness. You're doing it with resentment, and you're doing it because you feel like you have to. Kind of the same way that when you exercise, you feel like you're doing it because you have to punish yourself. And let's look at someone you really care about, someone you really love. And when you take care of them, you're happy to do it. You want to do it. I think of Luke, my boyfriend, like, I want to go out of my way to help him and to make him happy because I love him so much. And so when you feel that way about someone that you love, like, you really do want to take care of them. And so if you keep trying to create change from a place of loathing, from a place of trying to, let's say, hate yourself thin. That's a phrase that I say. You're trying to hate yourself thin. And every step of the way, you're hating yourself doing it. It's all coming from a negative place. That change is not going to last, because the taking care of is coming from the wrong place. And a lot of the times that's why people can't stay consistent with it. And so if you don't learn how to come and approach change with a different mindset, and that comes from actually knowing you're worth taking care of, you're worth feeling good, you're worth investing in. Because if that doesn't change, if you don't think you're worth it, if you don't think you deserve the love and the work and the effort, but you think everyone else is worthy of their love, like you think everyone should love themselves and you think that everyone should feel confident and feel good about themselves, and you would give the world to everyone else and you would help them in any way, and you're always giving away to people and you're a chronic people pleaser and your needs are always on the back burner and you're always dieting or trying to shrink your body because you want to please other people, or you think that if I look a certain way, if I can lose weight, then I will feel lovable and then I will be worthy of respect and admiration, it's still giving your brain the message, I don't matter. I don't care. My happiness, my well-being does not matter. That's what we're saying when you're on a diet and you're hungry, but you don't give your body fuel because you think I don't deserve food. When you skip a meal, when you don't allow yourself to enjoy something because you think I don't deserve it because of the way that I look, that's not coming from a place of love. And we need to change that, because this isn't just about changing your relationship with food. It's about changing your relationship with yourself. And if we don't fix that now, if we're going to loop back around to what I was saying, how I started, I cannot believe we made the whole loop back and it's been an hour. It is a Wednesday night right now and I was not planning on recording. But if we're looping back, if you don't change your relationship with yourself, if you don't address your relationship with food, if you don't understand the way that your brain works, and most importantly, which is one of the most majorist, that's not a word, major, one of the most major aspects of the Food Freedom Academy is we start at the beginning by teaching you something called the self-coaching model. And I do this because my entire philosophy as a coach, and that is what this episode started as, is that I want to work myself out of a job because I don't want my clients to rely on me for the rest of their lives. That's not what I'm about. If that was my business model, I could probably make a lot of money because that's how the weight loss industry works and the diet industry works, right? Like they work on repeat customers. I want you to keep giving me your money. I want you to keep being dependent on my plan or my program or my app because that's how I keep getting money from you. That's how I keep making profit. And for me, when I started my business, I decided to do it according to my values. And I decided to do it with integrity. And I said, I want to change people's lives. And I don't want to keep hooking them in. I don't want to give them half knowledge. I don't want to hold things back from them so that they keep coming back for more. Like I want to give them everything that they need. And I want to make sure that I give them the tools to be their own coach. So I teach you how to be your own coach so that you know how to speak to yourself when you get down on yourself. You know how to speak to yourself when you're going through a challenge. Because eventually when you do start flying on your own, because you're not going to be in the program forever, you're going to know how to go out into the world. Because that's part of our third pillar, which is the lifestyle integration. I want you to know how to be your own coach so that when you go out into the world and there are challenges and you're in a conversation where they're all about talking about diet talk and you feel uncomfortable or you notice some old restrictive thoughts popping up, you know exactly how to handle them. Because I know as much as anyone that healing your relationship with food doesn't mean that those old restrictive thoughts won't ever pop up every now and then. Of course they will. You've thought this for so many years. The difference is that you're not going to act on them and you're not going to let these thoughts stay for longer than a second. Literally, that's what I mean by that. Like, people have asked me, I've been on podcasts before, and they asked me about my eating disorder and like, do those thoughts ever still pop up for you? And I said, if I'm being honest, yeah, it pops up for like half a second. And then I know exactly how to just let go of it, right? Because of course you're going to have those old impulses and those old instincts. And we live in a world that's going to label food as good or bad. But I will say 99% of the time, those thoughts don't even slightly cross my mind anymore. And I can't believe the way that I used to think about food. It's like night and day. But I'm still like kind of recognizing some rules that I used to have. And I'm like, oh, that's super interesting. Like, I was on a trip this is really going long, but I hope that you're enjoying this podcast because I have a lot to say. But I was on a trip a couple of months ago in New Orleans visiting my friend who lives there. And I was having a coffee with milk, and I realized, I was like, I never realized that I usually only drink black coffee, and I think that still stems from my dieting days. And I'm realizing that I actually really like coffee with cream. And in that moment, I was like, wow, there was a food rule I didn't realize I had. But the difference is that it didn't give me anxiety to add milk to my coffee by any means at all. But I noticed it, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Well, now I know where it's coming from. And I absolutely have no guilt or shame breaking that long rule that I had from a while ago. And so going back to the thought that drove this conversation, which is when you learn how to understand your brain, how to speak to yourself, how to reframe your thoughts, how to rewire your neural pathways, how to be your own coach, then if you show up for yourself and you get guided through all of this and you learn these tools, then there is no reason why this wouldn't work for you. So when you sit down and you think about what you want to do next when it comes to your relationship with food, and that fear of what if it doesn't work for me pops up, then you can listen to this episode all over again. So to wrap things up, when we talk about my philosophy as a coach, if you want someone who's going to be your biggest cheerleader, who's been through it, who's going to show up with kindness and compassion and expertise, because not only do I have personal experience, but I've worked with hundreds of clients, and believe it or not, human beings are very similar. And they all have very similar patterns, and they all kind of flow the way that our brains work. And I've done so much research on the brain that I understand where all of this is coming from. And I've asked millions of questions to millions of people to understand how people operate. I'm going to be that kind of coach. And I'm going to bring some humor to it too, because who said that teaching had to be so serious? And who said that growth had to be so serious? So I'm going to bring some humor. I'm going to bring some sarcasm. I'm going to bring my real personal self, because I do believe that in order to really create change, you need to connect with the people that you're working with. And so I'm going to be my full honest self. I'm going to show up to calls with no makeup on, because sometimes I just don't feel like wearing makeup. And I'm going to be there to coach the hell out of you. Because if there's one thing that all of my clients can attest to, is that I care about my clients so much. And I am good at what I do. I know that I am. And so if you are looking for someone who is going to hold your hand through this scary transition, it's not going to feel like rainbows and butterflies all the time, because you're going to have to make some changes and you're going to have to work through some stuff, which we're going to work through together. But when you're doing it with a coach and you're doing it with a community, when you're not alone doing it, it becomes a lot easier. And that's what all of my clients have said. Being surrounded by people who share the same fears, the same struggles as you, there's very few things that are as powerful as that. And I know for me, when I'm going through a hard period in my business and I feel very isolated, because, being a business owner, working from home can feel isolated. You feel like no one understands what you're going through. And whenever I join some kind of accountability group or support group or coaching program, the coaching programs especially, I feel instantly better, because I know that I'm not alone and I see that people are going through it. I am seeing that people having success. And so if they can do it, then I can too, right? So if you want a coach who's going to coach you every week and walk you through your blind spots and give you plans and help you create the life of your dream, if you want a community of women who are going to cheer you on, who are literally going to become your new friends who are on this journey with you together. When I say the community aspect that I feel from the women in this group, it has many times brought tears to my eyes because it's really, really powerful. So if you don't want to feel alone in this anymore and you want to be supported through not only coaching, but a group, and on top of that, if you're having that fear of what if this doesn't work for me, you have a step-by-step roadmap. Literally, you've got from this is where you start to this is where you end, and this is everything in between. And if you're struggling with this, go there. And if you need help with this, I've got a plan and I've got a blueprint. If you want to create a new habit, I've got a 10-step blueprint. And if you're struggling with emotional eating, I've got 5 steps to navigate emotional eating. And I've got worksheets attached to make sure you've got everything that you need. So again, it's really hard to make a misstep when you've got that puzzle all put together for you. You're not trying to get a podcast here and read a book there. You have it step by step. So you've got your coach, you've got your community, you've got a step by step. And through this all, you're becoming your own coach. How is change not possible for you? How could the next year of your life not be the best year of your life or the year of the most growth? How could you be the exact same person now than you are a year from now with the same habits and the same struggles if you have all of that in your back pocket? And not only do you have coaching and not only do you have a community, but you have lifetime access to all of this material, all of the step by step. So you get to work with a coach for 3 months and work through your blind spots and understand yourself and learn how to become your own coach. And then even if you want to come back to some of the trainings or do some of the worksheets, or you want to dive deeper into healing your relationship with exercise or gentle nutrition or whatever you want to learn more about, or you feel like you want a refresher, you can always come back to it. And that is what is found in the Food Freedom Academy. That's really what my group coaching program is. And it's a 12-week program that will, yes, help you recover from chronic dieting, help you leave that behind. Yes, it will help you heal, transform your relationship with food. It will also help you change the way that you feel about yourself. It will make you see life differently. It will improve your relationships. It will improve your moods. It's going to improve the way that you feel about yourself. That is what I know about our program. And our doors opened today. So if you're listening to this in real time, that is September 14th, 2023. We are accepting applications as of today, and we are closing down the applications on Friday, the 22nd, September 22nd. Quite frankly, I know that we are going to get a lot of applications this year. And each application, once it's approved, then you book a call with me because I am selective about who I let into the program. I want to make sure that you're going to be a right fit. So that's another thing is you get to talk to me. There's no obligation there, but I need to make sure that the people who do join this program, like we focus on growth, we focus on transformations. If I don't believe you're going to get that, if I don't believe you're a right fit, I will be 100% honest with you because it's not good for you. It's not good for me. And like I said, when I approached my business, it came from a place of value and it came from a place of wanting to change someone's life. So if I don't believe this is a right fit for you, I will be honest and I will tell you. And not only that, I have a lot of connections in the industry. So I will point you in the best directions for your next steps based on where you're at. And because I do know that we're going to get a lot of applications this time around, I know that my calendar is going to get booked up very quickly. So if you are even slightly interested in knowing more about this program, if this sounds like what you need, and if I sound like a coach you would want to have. If I don't sound like a coach you would want to have, then I am not insulted at all. But finding the coach that you do want to have, someone you do connect with, someone who has the same values as you, finding that person and then learning more about it. And if you want to learn more about it, and if you want to determine if this is a right fit for you, if you're ready to stop letting that fear hold you back and make your actions align with your values and your words and live in integrity of saying, if I believe that I can heal my relationship with food, if I believe that with guidance and with support, I can do this, how do I take action and invest in myself to show that to myself? So I cannot believe this was over an hour long, but it was natural. I just sat down at night. I was having these thoughts and I am really excited to open my doors. And I wasn't even going to record a podcast talking about it, but it just felt right. So yeah, if you're wanting to change, if you're done with quick fixes, if you want a long-term transformation in your mindset, in your life, and you're ready to do the work and showing up for yourself, then I'm your girl. Go to sabrinamagnan.com/application. The link is in the show notes as well. If for some reason there are no times that work for you, you will have the option of sending me an email and we will see if we're able to get you on my calendar for us to chat. So have an amazing rest of your day. Have an amazing weekend. I love you. I'm there for you. And I hope to speak to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.